So for this video, I want to talk about centering 2 pounds of clay. I want to begin just by talking a little bit about body position. You can see I'm sitting with my legs bent at 90 degrees. That means my thighs are parallel with the floor, and the tops of my thighs are pretty much level or at the same height as my wheel head, right? So my thighs aren't up here like this, they're at the same height as the wheel head. And what that allows me to do is keep my feet flat on the floor, and it allows me to brace my forearms on my legs, so it looks like this. So my forearms are down on my thighs, and I've kind of made a bit of a triangle, right? So I've got like contact here and here, my feet are on the floor, my forearms are on my thighs, and then my thumbs will actually be crossed like this. So when I'm in this position, I'm completely stable. And stability, your body stability, is the most important thing in centering. Now what we're going to do is just practice the hand position. So you can see my right thumb is over my left, like this. My right hand fingertips are going to do most of the work for centering smaller amounts of clay. So you can see my right hand fingertips are in further than my left. So they'll be cupped slightly so that the tips of my right hand fingers are actually going to be the surface of my right hand that makes contact with the clay. My left hand fingers really aren't going to do anything, and that's why they're up and away. So it's right thumb over left, right hand fingertips cupped in so that the tips will make contact with the clay. Forearms down on my thighs, feet flat on the floor, knees at 90 degrees, and thighs are parallel to the floor. So that's the hand position you want to practice. I'd spend a little bit of time just kind of getting in and out of this hand position and try and reinforce it so that it becomes kind of a muscle memory. So now we're going to take our 2 pounds of clay, set it in the center of the potter's wheel, and you can use the concentric rings to kind of get a sense for where it's sitting, right? Set it inside the middle ring. So what we're going to do now is basically begin to attach the clay to the wheel. So rather than just like throwing it down and adding water and kind of starting this big chaotic process, we're going to go about it a little bit differently. We're going to take the right hand, kind of the pad of the thumb here, and the heel of the hand, and then the flat of the left in the center here. And we're going to use those two surfaces to pound the clay gently into the center of the wheel. We're actually going to do most of the centering now rather than after adding water. You can see we're starting to get a cone shape. One important thing to keep in mind is this part of the right hand is actually going to be aiming at the center of the left palm, like this. Of course, the clay will be in the middle, so it'll be at more of an angle like this. But you want to make sure that this part of the right hand, the heel and pad of the thumb of the right hand, are pounding towards the center of the left palm. Turn the wheel very slowly. And you want to kind of pound the clay in a rhythmic way. So if the wheel is turning too fast, you'll feel like you have to go really fast to keep up. You don't want that. So you want to just be have the wheel turning very slowly so you have all the time you need to make nice, consistent kind of taps or hits. So you can see now the clay is mostly centered. It's triangular, and it has just kind of a little roll here at the edge. So I'm just going to take my first finger of my right hand and just kind of smear this attachment here so that the clay is firmly attached to the wheel. And you can see we're most of the way centered. This is really where you want to do a lot of the centering before you add water. So now that we're ready, we can begin by adding a little bit of water. The hand position, I want to review again. Right thumb over left. The right hand fingertips are going to be, or the right hand is going to be cupped like this, and the right hand fingertips are going to do the work. Your two thumbs are going to provide downward pressure, so they're going to stabilize the top the right hand fingertips will do the side. So just a little bit of water. Just enough so you don't feel any dry areas. Anytime you add water to the potter's or to a piece of clay on the wheel, always pick up your sponge and kind of clean it up before it goes off your clay onto the wheel head and sprays across your studio. If you just get in the habit of doing that, you'll spend a lot less time cleaning. Okay, so we're going to go right thumb over left, right hand fingertips tight together, cupped, fingertips making contact here. So you can see the first thing that happens is I apply a little downward pressure and the top becomes flatter. I just added a little bit more water, so I'm just going to pick the water up on the wheel head. Now I'm going to concentrate on my right hand fingertips, which will be controlling the side. So my fingertips are going to dig in. See how my hand is cupped like this? Right? It's not my whole hand making contact. If you make contact with too large of an area, like the whole surface of your hand, the clay will dry out very, very quickly because you'll be essentially scraping all the water off. So you really don't want that. So just the fingertips are all you need. It's coming around to you, it's moving in a circle, so you don't need to make a lot of contact. It's best not to. So I'm just digging in with my right hand fingertips, and then I'm going to slowly move up. And what I mean by that is I'm going to start with my pinky of my right hand just barely touching the wheel head, and then I'm going to just ride up a little bit. And I'm just now maybe an inch off the bottom. So it's just a gentle, short little upward movement. So what that does is it takes the grooves from each of your fingertips and it blends them together. That's basically how centering is done at this scale. So a little more about the top. So I'm going to take my right thumb over my left, and as I dig in with my right hand fingertips, I'll feel a little bit of upward movement, right? Because I'll be basically like squeezing in at the bottom. Sort of like if you take a water balloon and you squeeze, the water balloon pops up, right? So same idea here. You're pushing in, or you're squeezing in on the side so the top rises up. What centering is basically countering that pressure. So you're going to apply inward pressure on the side and then gently some downward pressure from the top. And that will give you a nicely centered piece of clay. It just helps to bring all the clay into the middle of the wheel. And what that means is basically it's evenly distributed around a circle. Okay, that's centering, is evenly distributing clay around a circle. So you can see I have my right hand fingertips tight together, and what they're going to do is just dig in kind of independently and make grooves, right? So that looks like this. You can see the individual grooves from each of my fingertips. And what those areas are, those little contact surfaces, are like really, really effective ways of centering this, this piece of clay kind of like in sections, right? So like you center a little bit at a time with each finger. But then in order to blend all those little circles into one, we're just going to move up a little bit. So we're going to fit our fingers back into those grooves and then gently slide up. You can see how that centers the side. So the idea here is we want to do those things while applying a little bit of downward pressure, or even think of it as stopping pressure. So like I've got my grooves and I bring them together and I slide up. And as I slide up, the clay is going to rise up, but I want to actually prevent it from doing so. So rather than thinking of it as pushing down, think of it as like a stop. So the clay will be kind of butting up against your thumb, your left thumb, and you'll just keep that thumb there. So it will prevent the clay from going up any higher. And you can see how that causes it to be forced into the center. So you center the side while preventing the top from coming up, just like that. The reason I teach this technique is because it's much better on your wrists than a hyperextending technique, right? This keeps your wrists straight throughout the process. I've seen centering techniques where people will add water with one hand, hyperextend the other wrist, and push. And that's like a road to wrist problems. You don't want to do that. So if you keep your thumbs crossed, let your right hand fingertips do the work, and keep your wrists always perfectly straight, you'll really never have those problems. So this is a biomechanically better technique, as well as being pretty quick and effective and clean and efficient. So I highly recommend you give it a try. So thanks for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please check out our other essential skills pottery videos. Follow the link below for access to exclusive pottery lessons and other content.